I got a little tired just when we met the Bionic Man dude. Ooh.
Enoch Trevor.
And we're still trying to figure out what his dealio is. Now that we found him hiding in the safe.
He's got a white-haired man.
Yeah. God, that hand, though.
Yeah, that's creepy.
Whew. Okay, you'd better start talking, you trick Professor Hairbrain with that bogus machine you built. And you shall have to explain the theft of the waxwork from Madame Two Spells as well. Whilst I would be delighted to answer your many questions.
What?
Personally, I would advise that you deactivate my little parcel first. Deactivate? Your parcel? I refer, of course, to the dynamite. To the time bomb. I left it in the most prominent position. Ah. Ha ha ha, I see. Stunned silence. You're all gearing up to die with me, then? No. Mr. Sholmes, with only 7 seconds to spare. That was too close for comfort. I've got 1 foot in the grave already. Are you trying to help us get a kill or get us killed? Mr. Sholmes' deductions can be completely life-altering, can they? Well, my dear fellows, that was a close shave. The resemblance to an anti-gravity device is really quite startling, I must say. What? Anti-gravity devices don't exist. Phew! I wouldn't push it, Mr. Sholmes. Okay. So, it's funny, because this guy's not really a robot, but... it's good.
Really? I don't know what's going on.
I want to ask about the time bomb first. Why the heck did you make a bomb? Got a death wish, have you? Hiding right beside a ticking time bomb. Please, why do you suppose I chose to hide inside the safe? It's no ordinary safe. It's specially designed. A dynamite explosion wouldn't leave a scratch on it. So, in fact, the safe was the only safe place. Precisely. But once you climbed inside, you wouldn't have been able to get out again. I invite you to look more closely. The safe is fitted with a handle on the inside to allow the door to be unlocked from within. Ah, so it is. I had always intended to blow this place to smithers in any case. I just wasn't expecting uninvited guests to come along and screw up my plans. Do you mean to say you were planning to blow us all up? No, that was unforeseen. What do you mean? Most people run, you see, when they see a ticking time bomb at their feet. Ah, I calculated the time required for retreat to a safe distance and set the device accordingly. But your seemingly endless discourse in here threw a spanner in the works. Something wrong, Gregson. Do I have something on my face besides the usual eyes, ears, nose, and mouth? Is it just me, or was the first game way darker than this one?
What do you mean?
Well, the first game had some serious dark undertones, like obviously the xenophobia is still here, but I don't recall the villains being so comical in the first one. Like, this guy clearly seems like a villain to me, but... or maybe all of this is a big misunderstanding, which I highly doubt. What on earth happened in here? You found me, haven't you? No need to screw me down any further. Everything in here is precisely what it seems. Yeah, well, we'll be giving it a thorough going over, don't you worry, Drebber. What fails to click with me is how you were able to locate my workshop that I was not expecting. When I heard whistling from the other room, I knew it was time to bolt. Whistling? Ah, that would have been me. Oh! For some reason, I woke in fine fettle today. No words, just tightly squeezed chips. Clearly I must have a screw loose, though, as I couldn't remember the combination for the safe. And another one loose, as I couldn't remember on which piece of furniture I'd written it down. We also found a rope over by the wall. Yes, I had hoped to exit through the skylight, but sadly the rope was too short, so I set about searching for the combination code to open the safe. And burning the incriminating blueprints. Regrettably, though, you failed to retrieve the head from the balloon among the rafters. And after that, you hid yourself in the safe, having first set this parcel ticking. Well, I had no intention of being nailed by the police. I think we have a fairly good idea of what's been going on here now. What about the two incidents you've evidently been involved in recently? Professor Harebrain's instantaneous kinesis experiment at the Great Exhibition, and the waxwork model you stole, which this head belongs to. That's no ordinary head, you know. That's the head of the professor. Clad in a mask with a lock so strong I'm unable to open it safely to reveal the killer's identity. I've been considering carrying it around as protection. After all, that's enough. What's going on here, Gregson? I'm sure you are aware that I have sole jurisdiction to investigate here. Yes, well, Dr. Seath... Is it Scythe or Seath?
I'm gonna go with Scythe because that's what the Grim Reaper carries. This is Scythe.
Yeah.
So...
And she looks positively evil. So Dr. Scythe again, so the forensic investigation team are here. And you know full well this engineer is a key witness. Why are you allowing this lawyer access to him? If Lord Strongheart knew of this, you'd be finished. You lot, leave at once. My dear madame, there's no need for such a threatening tone, I assure you. After all, that's no way to greet an old acquaintance, is it, Dr. Scythe? Hello, Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes knows Dr. Scythe. If it's protecting the machine next door that's causing such a sour expression on your face, you are quite misguided. It's really nothing more than a shell, you... Get out. But of course, we'll show ourselves the door. I see you haven't softened at all. Mr. Naruhodo? Yes? It would appear that our delightfully entertaining investigations have run their course for today. But Mr. Sholmes... Let us leave this place in the doctor's capable hands. I said get out now, all of you. Your presence here is not required either, Gregson. Understood. But I'll say just one thing before I head off. If it wasn't for this lawyer and his companions, we'd never have found this place, and the whole workshop would have been blown to bits. There was a time bomb set in here that this lot disarmed. Inspector.
Maybe that's what she wanted.
Something giving you a chuckle, has it, Drebber? Ah, so sorry, didn't mean to offend. You're quite right, of course. You did disarm the time bomb, didn't you? Yes, you did disarm that one. Eh? What are you... That one? You mean...
Uh-oh.
Oh
no.
Oh dear.
That's the one that they were guarding?
Yeah. It's an hour later that we heard the news of the enormous explosion that ripped through the experimentation stage of the Great Exhibition. Professor Harebrain's invention and all its secrets were blown away forever. Oh dear. Wow. Wow, that was an interesting way to... And look at Gregson standing up for us. I think Gregson's starting to warm up to us. I'm starting to warm up to him, because I was missing Gumshoe for a while. And Gumshoe's still great, don't get me wrong. Good morning to you, Mr. Naruhodo. Ah, good morning, Professor. Ready for today's proceedings. I hope so. I should be even... Good morning, my dear fellows. What the? That went quick. Even I with nothing left to. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, you're here. Why, naturally, a true gentleman stands shoulder to shoulder with his friends in battle at all times. Thank you, I really appreciate it. I'll see you later, then. Now, Professor, we really need you to remain calm in the courtroom today. Yes, do try your hardest not to enter the witness stand uninvited again. Yes, I will. I realize it was a mistake, but my dear fellows, I must interject. Oh, you're still here, Mr. Sholmes. What's the matter? Surely you've overlooked some praise, have you not? To be cast in my direction? Sorry, I don't follow. Must I spell it out? I, the great Herlock Sholmes, the greatest detective of worldwide acclamation, arose at some ungodly hour to be here now, first thing in the morning. A miracle, you must agree. Well, if I must agree, then... As you know, my sleep is quite impregnable. Iris had to employ her full gamut of tactics. She pulled the covers off, shook me, poked both cheeks, punched me, and kicked me from the bed. Then she poured a boiling cup of her latest experimental blend on my face, and at last I was bestirred. Oh my, Iris has been busy. Iris doesn't have it in her to go that far. She's too nice. I sense the spirit of a fellow scientist, one who relishes the infinite possibilities of blending tea. I'm the one worthy of praise here, not Iris. This is my victory. Sorry to cut in. Oh, Inspector Gregson, good morning. Gregson, my dear fellow, why the grim expression at this delightfully early hour? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I've been confronted with a grimmer expression, eh? Dear me. Are you going to take that insult lying down, Professor? What? What? I don't know! Poor Professor. Anyway, here's the paperwork you asked for. What paperwork? Ah, I took the liberty of requesting it yesterday. I have a feeling it may prove useful. You wouldn't believe the hoops I had to jump through to get this brought out of the archives. It's the professor's autopsy report. That masked murderers, who killed 5 members of the aristocracy. He was found guilty in a closed trial 10 years ago now. It was all done under wraps, and he was quickly executed soon after the trial. It's all in here. Interesting.
Well, Courtney would have done it so that maybe she let him go.
I'm quite curious about this. I don't know what to say. Thank you, Inspector. Let's take a look at it, shall we? Well, first of all, I don't remember being able to examine this yet. Nothing to examine? Okay. Uh-huh.
Not yet, anyway.
Oh, there was a keyhole. Did I maybe miss that? Yep. This lock does look very strong, doesn't it? There's definitely no way you could remove the mask yourself if it was put on you. What a terrible way to treat someone, even a convicted criminal. I know, it's starting to make me livid, actually. Mr. Naruhodo, please. I mean, just think about it. Imagine if you had an itch on your cheek all of a sudden. You'd be utterly helpless. Well, yes, that's true. But I'm not sure that warrants quite so much anger. Oh, right. Sorry. I mean, that would suck quite a bit. We haven't seen this either. There's a little metal plaque here, look. Fostering burgeoning talent for the future of scientific discovery. It seems rather ironic, doesn't it? But clearly, Mr. Trevor really was a talented scientist. This piece of glass is almost as thick as it is wide. Yes, I've never seen anything like it. If you were to compare it to a human, only Mr. Sholmes has such thick skin. There's really no need for such a comparison, Mr. Naruhodo, as you well know. Anyway, it can only be from the Crystal Tower, surely. Yes, I think so too. It was probably made especially to meet the demands of that great structure. Man, we really fell behind on this. Oh look, the cover came open. Yes, now, there should be a glass plate inside. You have to change the plate with each new photograph you want to take, you see. Is something wrong? There is no plate. It's been removed. Ah, what a pity. But I suppose if you think about it, this wouldn't be the actual camera that was used at the time, just like the waxwork isn't the actual person. So we'd never have found a photographic print of the executed convict coming back to life anyway. Oh yes, you're quite right, of course. Poor Susato-san, she looks devastated.
What?
What a wonderful machine. You really love contraptions like this, don't you? Oh yes, anything mechanical I find absolutely irresistible. Almost irresistible, surely. Well, whenever I see a pocket watch, for example, I can't help myself. I simply have to take it apart. That's worrying. Yes, Father tells the time by the rumblings of his stomach now. He has given up having a watch. Poor Professor Mikotoba. Now let's take a look at that blood. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. What is it? On the bellows just here, there seems to be some very dark red stains. Yes, you're right. It looks like blood, actually. Oh my. I'm sure it's not what you're thinking. Ha 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 ha. Interesting there. Okay. Redacted. Student and the professor. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, June 17th. Courtney Stevens.
Her name was Stevens then, not Sid.
Yeah.
Whose name was Stevens?
Nobody? Thank you, Inspector.
Wait, wasn't there more in the autopsy?
I don't think so. That's the only thing I saw. See?
There's more pages?
No. Maybe the big thing is that this is Courtney Stevens, which maybe has something to do with something.
Okay.
Oh, and also... Ah, look here, Mrs. Sato. Oh yes, the wood's cracked and broken a little, I suppose because it fell from such a height. Yes, from the height at which the balloon was flying down into the crystal tower below. A fall of about 30 feet or 9 meters, leaving the man inside tragically dead. Man, it's a good thing we're looking at this stuff, because I was behind. Yes, much obliged, Gregson. Us lowly lot at the yard are just doing what we can, in the shadow of the great detective Sholmes, of course. That's interesting. Well then, Professor Harebrained, this is it. Today we're going to lay all this to rest at last. I wish you the best of luck, Professor. I suppose he'll be in there today, will he? Drebber. Yes, we expect the prosecution to summon him as a witness. I can't believe this guy worked with that half-machine crazy.
Maybe he wore a disguise when he did it.
I mean, because if you look at the waxwork, he looked normal in the waxwork, but he looks positively
Scary.
unique and scary. We expect the prosecution to summon him as a witness. I'm still amazed that you managed to find him in just one day. I really owe you both so much. Counsel and the defendant, the trial is about to resume. Kindly make your way into the courtroom at once. This is it then, the final chapter. Funny, my heart's racing a little. I've not felt this before, actually, this strange foreboding. As if something's going to happen in this trial that I'm not ready for. But I can't let that distract me from the only thing that really matters. Finding the truth. Well, let's see how much we can get done tonight. Because if we can't get this done tonight, I would like to finish the case before we leave to go out this weekend.
Okay.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. We resume the public hearing of Albert Harebrained, here present, who stands accused of murder. Are the counsels for the prosecution and defense ready to proceed?
Ooh, he's here.
Yeah, I saw him on the side. I'm like, that's interesting. The prosecution is ready, my lord. The defense is ready, my lord. As promised, Lord Von Zieks has his apprentice with him, his apprentice with memory loss. If I may, Lord Von Zieks. Yes, my lord. There appears to be someone standing at your side. Ah, yes, my apprentice and assistant. He better be careful when he goes to throw his wine bottle backwards. The prosecution believes today's proceedings will see the complexity of this case rise considerably. Okay. I therefore instructed my assistant to attend to ensure the smooth running of the trial. And the smooth running of liquid refreshments by the look of it. The way he holds himself, the way he moves. Couldn't be anyone else. But he's still suffering from amnesia, so there's really nothing we can do at the moment. I know, but it's just so very hard. It would appear the prosecution has done a fine job in responding to the demands of the court made yesterday. I understand you have successfully secured the engineer who disappeared from the scene on the day in question. Yes, my lord. I intend to call him as a witness shortly. Very good, very good. Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this court.
Let's see how random.
Are you ready and willing to proceed? Well, it's still the same jury from the other time,
Oh, that's
right?
true.
Of course, my lord. I'm sure we all understand the importance of doing our civic duty. I do so despise deception and deceit. I find it so very wearing. To take a man's life with a conjuring trick, it is against the magician's code, not to mention the law. Any fake scientist should feel the wrath of God, if you ask me. We have to listen to what's said on both sides, the fence, and then settle on one. That's it, isn't it?
Is that a child?
It seems like it. Wasn't like this in my day. Wasn't like this at all. If all parties are ready to proceed, you may begin, Lord Von Zieks. Before I do, my lord, there is a report I must read to the court. Yesterday at the Great Exhibition Grounds, the evidence of primary importance in this case, the super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine, which was installed on the experimentation stage, was deliberately destroyed in an explosion affected by an unknown person or persons. It was what? An explosion? Is it gonna? This is an outrage. Yes, I heard this grave news yesterday. Scotland Yard submitted the report to my office in the evening. I read that the machine was blasted to smithers, and the wreckage reduced to ashes in the flames. I have here a photographic print of the scene taken in the wake of the explosion.
So there was a drop hole.
Yeah, it shows what little remains of the machine. Yeah, that's interesting. Yes, a terrible business. He did it to destroy the evidence, did he? That Enoch Drebber. The court will take this print as evidence, counsel. Late yesterday afternoon, the protection afforded to the machine by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act was revoked. However, before a thorough investigation could begin, the invention was obliterated from existence. As such, this will become a very different trial. As it stands now, with no evidence on which to draw meaningful conclusions, the authenticity of the kinesis machine will remain forever in obscurity. Indeed, a most unfortunate state of affairs. However, one thing remains clear. The victim's death was the result of the actions of the accused. Of that we can be certain, for it was the accused himself who was operating the machine and who ultimately caused his loss of control. As Lord Von Zieks rightly says, this is a very different trial now. The accused accepts responsibility for his part in the events that transpired. He acknowledges that Mr. Aspen died as a result of the accident caused by his machine's malfunction. However, unbeknownst to the professor, he was being deliberately deceived by a pair of very clever fraudsters. Names, counsel, if you please. the engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, and the victim himself, Mr. Odie Asman. So what exactly were these two men up to behind the defendant's back? The defense intends to expose that information, thus establishing the unequivocal innocence of the defendant. Thank you, counsels. The positions of the prosecution and defense have been clearly stated. Lord Von Zeeks, summon your first witness, please. At once, my lord. The prosecution calls the engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to the stand. Here we go.
He looks like a clock, doesn't he?
He kind of does, because his hand's moving like the hand of a clock. Name and occupation? Name, Enoch Drebber. Occupation? Hard to pin down, I would say. See that black monocle? Yes, why do I feel as though I've seen it somewhere before? Oh, you too, I had exactly the same feeling myself. Your file indicates that you are currently being investigated in connection with another case.
What?
The theft of a waxwork model, is it? A most extraordinary sounding business. But that has no bearing on this trial, I assure you. Cleave it from your mind. I wonder. You're familiar with the public experiment carried out at the Great Exhibition some days ago? Oops, sorry. The acute super high voltage instantaneous kinesis demonstration? Yes, you could say that. I am aware of it. It was a terrible accident, wasn't there? There was a terrible accident. It was you, Mr. Drebber, who constructed the vast machine used in the experiment. Or so our investigations indicate. Can you confirm your involvement? Yes, I constructed it, in precise accordance with the blueprints, but that's all. Then the court would be very interested to hear your thoughts about the machine, I'm sure. An amazing device, if you ask me. The pinnacle of modern science, making instantaneous kinesis of reality at last. What? Good gracious, do you mean to say that the experiment was bona fide? Is that your belief, sir? Yes, that is very much my belief. Such a waste that it blew up. But we've already established the machine was nothing more than a prop for an elaborate conjuring trick. You've established nothing of the sort. All that was shown during yesterday's proceedings is that the same outcome would have been produced by means of staged trickery. The defense merely proposed a method and demonstrated its feasibility, nothing more. But... We've procrastinated long enough, I feel. Witness, you will now give your formal testimony about the machine that you constructed for the purpose of the demonstration at the Great Exhibition. Understood. I wonder what this guy looks like when he's sweating and nervous. I guess we're gonna find out.
Cuckoo clock comes out of him.
Oh my god! I hope so. I met the young professor approximately 1 year ago through Mr. Asman's introduction. He provided me with the blueprints and I constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have required a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin? All the spectators saw the bird cage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst into the Crystal Tower. A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow.
You have a little evil smile at times.
He does, when he does that thing and he looks down. Yeah, a body double? That goes without saying, surely. To give the impression that something has moved when in reality it hasn't, it's a basic conjuring principle. The deception cannot be achieved without substituting the original with a fake at some point in the performance. But would I be right in saying you haven't managed to establish anything along those lines? Incidentally, the prosecution has already confirmed that Mr. Asman had no twin siblings. It's my understanding that this witness is well versed in conjuring artfulness. But such talents do not indicate that he was actually able to accomplish what he claims, namely the construction of what by all accounts must have been an extremely complex scientific machine. Whatever do you mean? Yesterday's proceedings brought the true nature of your past exploits to light, Mr. Drebber. Indeed it did, my lord, as a swindler who preys on innocent scientists to elicit government grant money through conjuring know-how. Yes, it's true that I possess considerable knowledge of stage magic. But crucially, my scientific knowledge more than matches that of any academic in the field. Investigation of the witness's workshop attests to that claim, my lord. As evidence, the police found this Royal Society trophy for young talent in science there. Yes, that's true, we spotted it there ourselves. If a hypothesis is sound, it can always be forged into a physical manifestation with sufficient skill. Though I may have sold the secrets of some deceptive wiles to sniveling, talentless scientists in the past. Would you therefore assert that the explosion of the machine was an unfortunate accident, or, of course, a deliberate act of murder carried out by misuse of the science? Counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, please. Yes, my lord. This is a smart dude, so he might be a tough one to crack. Let's see. Alright. So you are already acquainted with Mr. Asman himself? Not really. By chance, I'd seen his name mentioned in the papers, that's all. But I had no interest in his private affairs. If he was an unscrupulous investor, it was no concern of mine. As long as people pay their bills, I take up my tools and instruct what they ask for. So why did Mr. Asman approach you in particular, then? Who can say? I presume because my name is associated with excellence in engineering. Not to mention excellence in fraud. Hard to gauge, but the point is, all I did was construct the machine according to the blueprints I was given. In other words, the Kinesis machine was built on solid, scientific principles. Yes, you might say that. Professor Harebrained certainly has a mind like no other. He provided me with the blueprints and I constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick. It's clear that you have both scientific knowledge and knowledge of conjuring magic, however. The more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to handle whatever comes along. But your implication is that I furnished the machine with some trickery, I think. It's a possibility that we have to explore. Unfortunately, though, the machine has been blown to Kingdom Come. So there's really nothing left to explore, is there? It appears that the Kinesis machine was fitted with a timed explosive device of some kind. And there's nothing left of that device either, not a single shred of evidence remaining, I hear. He must have planned all this from the outset. But in any case, it's abundantly clear that the experiment couldn't have been a trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have to require a body double. Of course, that's it! Mr. Asman was a twin. Or has a twin, sorry. Perhaps my learned friend wasn't listening earlier. Mr. Asman has no twin siblings. No, I heard you before, but the thread of hope hadn't quite left me. The demonstration could have been a trick if there was somebody who looked sufficiently like the victim. But Dr. Scythe absolutely ruled that possibility out. I kind of butchered that, but still. It's beyond question that the victim himself, Mr. Asman, did move from the stage to the Crystal Tower. The fingerprints found at the scene attest to the fact. So it can't have been orchestrated using someone who looked identical to Mr. Asman, then. What are you thinking, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, no, nothing. Just that the idea of someone who looked identical to the victim is playing on my mind. All the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst. Hold it! It crashed headfirst, you say? According to the many witness reports from those there at the time, yes. Were you not there at the exhibition grounds on the day? Unlikely. I rarely leave my workshop. Yet another of your unique inventions was found at the scene. Well, it was the unveiling of a machine I'd labored over for many months. I saw clearly with my own eyes the birdcage plummeting headfirst into the tower. What a surprise. I believe the victim's neck was broken from the headlong fall, wasn't it? How would you have come by that information? Even an infernal recluse like me reads the newspapers, you know. According to the reports, 2 injuries were apparent on the victim's body. Yes, he'd been stabbed in the chest by a screwdriver believed to belong to the defendant. and he had broken vertebrae as a result of a fall from a considerable height. Correct, my learned friend has been doing this research, it seems. Do we know which injury was the fatal one? Sadly not. Forensic science is not yet at a level where such things can be determined. What we do know is that the victim died having sustained both injuries at some point during the experiment. And since he was found in the birdcage with his neck broken, it's obvious that he fell from a considerable height. I suppose that's hard to deny.
It's broken the bottom, ain't it?
That's what I thought. Yeah, because that's the part that was broken. Yeah, that's not head first. I think that's what it is. Causing damage to its base.
Objection!
We've examined the birdcage that crashed into the Crystal Tower ourselves. As you can see, the cage, which is a wooden construction, has sustained damage in one particular spot. Following the explosion, it fell some 30 feet into the glass of the Crystal Tower. That level of damage is to be expected, surely. I agree, the damage itself is entirely understandable. What doesn't make sense is the location of that damage. All the breakages in the wood are at the base of the birdcage, not the top. What are you saying? That's the opposite of where they should be. That's right, my lord. The birdcage that was at the scene is damaged at its base. So we have reports of the birdcage falling headlong into the Crystal Tower, yet the damage is at the bottom. The only way to reconcile these two facts is to accept that there were two birdcages in play that day, which were at some point switched. Switched during what wasn't a scientific experiment at all, but an elaborate piece of stage trickery. Good gracious, explain yourself, witness. Well... If we examine the facts, there's only one logical conclusion we can draw. The damage on the base of the birdcage clearly indicates that it crashed tail first into the tower. But multiple witnesses' reports claim it fell head first. The birdcage materialized in the sky next to a balloon flying over the stage following a spontaneous explosion at an altitude of some 60 feet above ground level, which is approximately 18 meters. It then proceeded to fall some 30 feet into the Crystal Tower in the ensuing deflagration. Witness reports amid such chaos are notoriously unreliable. Yeah, but getting multiple ones, but the victim's neck was broken. He plummeted 30 feet inside a heavy wooden cage. However he fell, it would be unsurprising to find one or two of his vertebrae crushed. He laughs weird. And also, when he does that, he seems to do like that weird dance with his hands and arms first. Riveting scientific analysis of events from the prosecution there. Also, have you noticed that random words of his are orange?
Like, that happens to a lot of people, though.
But no, but like usually the orange is because of something important, but like half of his was orange, which I found peculiar. Though to be even more rigorous, you would have to say it was only one vertebrae, actually. He wasn't quiet for long. I find it hard to see what's motivating Lord Von Zieks. This witness is clearly a swindler and one who deceived a personal friend of his. If you're going to establish the deception, do it right. Sorry? I feel like that's the undertone here. Ah yes, and there's one more point that the defense appears to have forgotten. It obviously wasn't a trick, as a certain truth very plainly demonstrates. What? It seems to me that the cross-examination had better continue until we resolve this matter. Mr. Drebber, you will amend your testimony with details of this truth. Of course, we must treat the matter scientifically, after all. I nearly had him there. I swear to God, it's like he dances before he talks by doing the robot or something.
He looks like a robot.
Yes, but like the dance of the robot. The kinesis clearly took place because there's nowhere else 30 feet high for the birdcage to have fallen from.
From one of the balloons. We have a piece of the balloon.
Yeah, especially since it could, if it shot the balloon and the cage was in the balloon, then. So, okay.
Hold it!
What do you mean? Well, before the demonstration began, the victim was alive on stage in front of the audience. Yes, there are lots of witnesses who saw Mr. Aspen on the experimentation stage, that's true. Also, I wonder if the person on the stage was the double.
The real one.
Yeah, the fake one. Because it seems that the fingerprints show that Mr. Aspen did die, so it seems to me that the person on the stage wasn't Aspen, if we're to believe that this didn't take place.
But the dead body was already...
The dead body was dead already,
in the balloon.
and the fake could have went through the trapdoor.
Right, because that's what got returned.
Yeah. So, just a theory of mine, but just knowing how, like, the Prestige... I remember, like, Michael Caine's character is like, the only way you can do it is a double! And without spoiling the movie for anybody watching, because you'll find out how the trick is done, but, like, he was adamant, and I think for, you know, magic as a whole, if there's transportation like that, it's probably a double. Yes, there were a lot of witnesses, yes. And the victim's neck broke as a result of an impact following a fall. Logically, therefore, the victim must have fallen from somewhere. The balloon that exploded was at an altitude of 60 feet. The point of impact on the tower was 30 feet up. We've been talking about the balloon. That difference of 30 feet is therefore the total distance the birdcage fell. And there's no other location from which the cage could have fallen that distance if it didn't drop out of the sky. Okay, so what they're saying is you can't use the balloon to contradict this, because they're saying that was 60 feet up. Ergo, the victim himself must have been beamed from the stage into the sky above the Crystal Tower. A trenchant scientific analysis. Dear me, every time I hear it explained, it sounds increasingly plausible. Oh yes. It's all very well thought out. Certainly all the spectators on the day saw it. The birdcage plummeting 30 feet through the air, I mean. Irritatingly, yes. Now let's press on this, and then we can look through our evidence. So you understand the science, did you? Not in the slightest. Oh, right. As I've said a number of times, I'm an engineer. My job is to manufacture according to the blueprints I'm given. I would be inviting manifold problems if I foolishly allowed my brain to digest the ideas behind them. I could be accused of stealing those ideas, for example. But how is it possible to construct a machine without really understanding the principles it relies on? Well, you're practicing law without really understanding the principles it relies on, aren't you? A very good point. Stand up for yourself, Mr. Naruhodo. The point is, the experiment resulted in instantaneous kinesis taking place. As such, the science must be sound. Yes, and really, experimental results are all that matters when it comes to proving a hypothesis. He's certainly very sure of himself. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, now that the machine has been completely destroyed by yesterday's explosion, it's going to be impossible to argue its authenticity one way or the other. But if we're unable to establish that it was a piece of staged trickery rather than genuine science, we will have no grounds on which to demonstrate Professor Harebrain's innocence. Both Mr. Aspen and this man in the stand tricked the professor and used him. They took advantage of his naivete and his unbending belief in his work, and I won't let them get away with it. And seeing as the professor is an old friend of Lord Von Zieks, what on earth must he be feeling toward Drebber?
When he talks about the devil, can he present the head?
I don't think so, just because we don't know what's inside and we can't open it. And I feel like since this is the amended testimony, that this needs to be something we contradict. Like finding if there's anywhere else it could have fallen. Because apparently it fell from here.
Wait, I thought that wasn't there before.
No, this is the other autopsy for the actual victim, not the one that was just given to us. Yeah. So this was the 60-foot one.
Wait, that's the 60-foot one, and the one in front of us is empty.
I mean, the balloon's empty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we up higher than that one?
I mean, this one's up higher, because this is the one that the little kid was on, Bohemia Boy.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was higher. But I think what they were saying was this was 60 feet up. Let's take a look at what they say again. For demonstration was alive, yes. And the victim logically, therefore, must have fallen from somewhere. And then here, the balloon that exploded was at an altitude of 60 feet. The point of impact on the tower was 30 feet up. That difference of 30 feet is therefore the total distance the birdcage fell. And there's no other location from which the cage could have fallen that distance if it didn't drop out of the sky.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't either. The difference of the balloon that exploded was at an altitude of 60 feet. The point of impact on the tower was 30 feet up. That difference of 30 feet is therefore the total distance the birdcage fell. Want to try it anyway? That photograph?
Let me try the photograph? Or the... Okay, yeah.
Like, what are you thinking?
I don't know, because what's the piece of balloon? But they're saying that it can't be that one?
Well, see, that's what it sounds like, since they seem to be accounting for the balloon, but I'm actually not even sure what they mean by the distance.
I know, because it's like they're almost acknowledging that it came out of the balloon.
Yeah.
The balloon is 60 feet up. The balloon that exploded was at an altitude of 60 feet. The point of impact on the tower was 30 feet. The difference of 30 feet is therefore the total distance the birdcage fell.
I mean, let's try it since we have time.
Objection!
Nope. And I would have to overrule your objection, counsel. The defense would accept. Let's take a look at this evidence again. So.
Hold on, go into that.
I don't know if this really shows where else it could have fallen.
There's nowhere else it could have fallen from. So, what did you present last time? The picture?
Yeah.
Show the piece of canvas, because he would be inside the canvas and not in the bucket of the balloon.
This?
Yeah.
You sure?
What other options we got?
Objection!
Whenever I hear the music not stop.
You keep looking at it and take a break.
Okay. You do that. I will take a look. Yes. Let me save before we exhaust all our options. This one's a little bit tricky.
Oh, sorry, kitty. I'm sorry. I just hit the cat in the head.
No, don't do that.
She was climbing in the blanket. I'm sorry, kitty cat. Come here. She's saying, I'm sorry. Come on. So you're saying that there's nowhere else 30 feet high for the birdcage to have fallen from. Is there a newspaper? There's a newspaper clipping of the incident that happened.
Well, this just talks about the Great Exhibition in general.
What does it say?
Yeah. But this is what got us to even go there.
What does the blurb say about it?
First test of matter transport device. Like, it's just saying that he's going to do the device. It doesn't say anything on the accident because
Right.
the accident didn't happen yet.
But what does it say in the blurb
Let's
outside?
see. I mean, you can't read the blurb.
The blurb is outside what it says in the lineup of evidence in your toolbox.
Oh.
Because I was just thinking maybe it fell from another portion of the tower, because the tower would already be 30 feet up. Maybe it has something to do with the crossbow? Because he would have shot something to make it come out.
Yeah, but then why wouldn't that picture be...
Suggestion.
Let's see... I mean, the experiment sketch doesn't really show... I mean, I guess it could have been from a balloon there. Maybe it's this.
Objection!
This is a diagram of the experimentation stage and its surroundings. We know that somehow the birdcage appeared in midair before falling down to the crystal tower. A fall of about 30 feet or 9 meters. However, if you examine the diagram carefully, you'll see that there is one other possible location from which the birdcage could have fallen. The same distance of 30 feet. No. Well, it appears the defense is a possible explanation to put forward. Go ahead, counsel. Yes, my lord. Of course. You'll indicate the place to which you are referring on this same diagram. The alternative location from which the birdcage could possibly have fallen the requisite 30 feet. Well, it seems like here, because that seems to be the same distance. That's what I was getting at with showing this, because it does show the balloons. Let me try it.
Take that!
If it had fallen from here, the birdcage would have plummeted the same 30-foot distance. If that's my learned friend's claim, I suggest he demonstrates for the court personally, huh? And you may consider this a parting gift, counsel. I feel like I've just hit the deck from 30 feet up anyhow now. Don't give me recourse to make the next fall from 60 feet up, You'll indicate the place to which you are referring on the same diagram.
Can you go up? No, you cannot go any higher, huh?
No. I don't know if it would be here, or would it just be from this, which doesn't make any sense?
Can you click on the tower itself?
I mean, I can click anywhere here. The point is, which one's the right spot? The alternative location from which the birdcage could have possibly fallen the requisite 30 feet. So this to this is 30 feet.
Mm-hmm. I say from the building itself.
Like over here?
Mm-hmm.
Take that!
No.
Objection!
Sometimes, though, I don't know if I got it wrong or if I was off by like 1 centimeter. You know what I mean?
We'll have you save that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just have to go back and show this picture again, which is not a big deal.
I don't know. It seems like it should be obvious.
Yeah, because it doesn't. What if it fell from here?
Objection!
Okay. Let me see which one. Okay, so auto's a little while ago.
You should save now.
I already did. I just loaded from the save.
But I meant since you showed the picture already.
Well, I gotta show the picture again, though.
Objection!
And then I can save.
That's what I meant.
Okay, so let's see what he says again. This is a diagram of the experimentation stage and its surroundings. We know that somehow the birdcage appeared in midair before falling into the crystal tower. A fall of about 30 feet or 9 meters. However, if you examine the diagram carefully, you'll see that there is one other possible location from which the birdcage could have fallen. The same distance of 30 feet. You'll indicate the place to which you are referring on the same diagram. The alternative location from which the birdcage could have possibly fallen the requisite 30 feet. I mean, but at this point, is this what this is the glass? I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is 30 feet up?
How could he have gotten over there?
Well, this is where he came from.
Take that!
It is that?
Maybe that's where the trap door is and he fell. The place I'm referring to is here. But that's where the birdcage would have been to begin with. Which is exactly the point, my lord. Yes, the birdcage was in the machine on the stage, but what we must also consider is the height of the stage itself. Go on, Counsel. It turns out that the experimentation stage was built at a considerable height above ground level. If you look at the diagram, in fact, you'll see it's about the same height above the ground as the balloon was above the crash site. When the experiment got underway, the machine and the birdcage were engulfed in steam.
Okay, well, we had suspected this.
Yeah. That's why I looked, because I'm like, that looks like 30 feet, but at the moment the floor of the stage gave way, and if we were to assume there was a void underneath, this birdcage and the one seen by the audience would have fallen almost exactly the same distance. Once again, my lord, this all points to the fact that there was not one birdcage, but two.
Objection!
My learned friend has no evidence that the stage had such a contrivance in its design. Oh, we have evidence.
We have the picture.
Yes, someone is responsible for the criminal destruction of the kinesis machine itself, it's true. However, the stage still stands. And take a moment to look at the photographic print of the scene following yesterday's explosion. Good lord, the metal grill that formed the floor of the machine is undone. Yes, most likely blown open by the force of the explosion that destroyed the rest of the machine. The defense calls for the space below the stage to be investigated immediately.
Why not, Enoch?
Mr. Drebber, it was you who built the kinesis machine, which means that it was you who built the two bird cages that were used to carry out this deception. Whether Professor Harebrain's hypothesis is sound or not makes no difference, because it's the construction of this machine that matters, a machine designed to take Mr. Aspen's life and lay the blame firmly at the professor's door, something that could only have been carried out by you, Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Oh.
Objection!
If my learned friend has reached the end of his wild assertions, the prosecution would like to crush the defense's argument slowly but surely. What? Your argument fails to hold water on two counts. Two. Firstly, before and after the experiment, this witness went nowhere near the kinesis machine. Every relevant member of staff from the exhibition has attested to that. And I believe members of Scotland Yard have also been on watch duty at every public experiment. In other words, Mr. Drebber had no opportunity to switch the alleged pair of bird cages. But I've already explained why he wouldn't have needed to. The nonsense with the crossbow, that doesn't bolster your case at all. The man who disappeared from the stage and the man who crashed into the tower are one and the same. The forensic investigation team's report is unequivocal on that point.
I think is the problem, right?
Yeah. And the second flaw is your assertion. It's a distinct lack of motive. Why would this man have wanted to take the victim's life? He had no reason to do so. A motive? Do I have to think of everything myself? Yeah. I have here a contract provided by the witness. What contract is this, Lord Von Zieks? The contract into which Mr. Drebber entered with the victim, Mr. Asman. It reads, Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government grants or other income. 30%, certainly very favorable contractual conditions. But there was one very important provision bolted onto that clause. What provision? Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on condition that both contracting parties are alive. In other words, if either of them were to die, the contract would become null and void. So you see, I had nothing to gain from Mr. Aspen's death, the diametric opposite, in fact. Need I say more? The witness had neither an opportunity nor a reason to commit the alleged crime. In short, the possibility of Mr. Drebber having done as you suggest is nil. It seems the defense's assertion was somewhat wide off the mark. Lord Von Ziegfeld will submit the contract as evidence, please. A contract between Mr. Aspen and Mr. Drebber detailing the terms by which they would profit from the kinesis experiment. The investor, Mr. Odie Aspen, hereby enters into contract with the provider, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to fund labor and materials for the construction of a super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine. Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government grants or other income. Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on condition that both contracting parties are alive. If Drebber had no opportunity to switch the birdcage under the stage with the one in the Crystal Tower, he couldn't have done it, and in any case I have no idea what his motive might have been. There's one aspect of your argument that still holds true, however. There were 2 birdcages. The prosecution is unable to deny that. So I'm sure you're on the right lines, Mr. Naruhodo, and I've no doubt there are other aspects of your assertion that are undeniable truths too. Well, it would seem that the defense has no rejoinder to offer. Is he gonna cuh-cuh-cuh? Look at that. He cuh-cuh-cuhed. Well, I must say I'm a little surprised. I came here to testify about the machine I built, and instead my reputation is defiled. But the prosecution's counter has set the record straight, I think. It's impossible that I'm the culprit. At the beginning of this trial, we believed that there was only 1 birdcage, yet now we know there must have been 2. In other words, there was more to the demonstration than we realized at first. I think it's abundantly clear that the same applies to the culprit. Get to the point. The stage demonstration was constructed and set up in its entirety by you, Mr. Drebber. Therefore, it's inconceivable that you had no hand in the events that transpired. So if circumstances mean it's impossible that you could have carried out the crime yourself, it points to the fact that someone else was involved. Someone else? Counsel, are you suggesting? Yes, my lord, Mr. Drebber had an accomplice. An accomplice now? Well then, I presume, you are prepared for what's to come? Now that you're accusing not only this witness, but someone else of the most serious of crimes? If these accusations turn out to be false, then make no mistake. The prosecution will demand an equally serious punishment for your slander. Well, counsel, do you intend to pursue this course, and formally accuse another party of involvement in this matter? What do I do here? At the moment, there's little more than a hunch on my part. I don't know for sure if Drebber had an accomplice, or even if he really is the culprit here. One way or another, though, I have to make my position clear as a lawyer. So what's my stance going to be? Did Drebber have an accomplice, or not?
I think he had an accomplice.
I think so, too.
I think it's cool.
Yeah. The defense is ready to name Mr. Drebber's accomplice. Somehow the 2 birdcages must have been switched. Everything points to that. Yet according to the coroner's report, that's not a possibility. Which means the coroner's hit on it.
Yeah.
But that inconsistency itself is a clue. Counsel? My lord? You have received a stark warning already. If you are nevertheless determined, then I must now ask you to identify this alleged accomplice by name. So, your answer, please. Who do you claim to have been Mr. Drebber's accomplice?
Take that!
The name of the person in question is... What's wrong, my Nipponese friend? Surely fear doesn't bind your tongue now. It's a little late for that. Of course I'm afraid. After all, naming her in this capacity is definitely going to make waves, a lot of waves. I could very well turn every single person in this courtroom against me. I'm sure it'll be alright, Mr. Naruhodo. Thank you, Mrs. Sato. The enemy always appears larger than life, but you'll appear exactly the same to the enemy. Alright then, here goes. I almost thought we got it wrong.
Me too.
You kept us waiting long enough. Your answer counts now. The person who colluded with Mr. Drebber in order to carry out this wicked crime is Scotland Yard's coroner, Dr. Courtney Scythe. What the blazes are you talking about, Dr. Scythe? The head of the forensic investigation team and the coroner who conducted the autopsy on the victim? We know that there were 2 bird cages, so who else could have carried out the switch to complete the illusion? The accident happened in front of a huge crowd of spectators and the area was immediately sealed off. Then everyone, police officers included, were banished to make way for the forensic investigation team. When else could the switch have occurred? It can only have been in that team's presence. It's essential that the court determines exactly what happened following the incident. The defense demands that Dr. Scythe be summoned to the witness stand at once to testify. You've got a nerve, lad. Standing up there, dragging the yard's name through the mud. I didn't mean to. I know the woman very well. There's no better dead room worker out there. How dare you call her a criminal? My learned friend's imagination appears to be wilder than the East End at night. But the recklessness of your accusation aside, there's another grave problem with your argument. One which the prosecution demands you address at once. A grave problem? Oh my word. Who do you claim acted as the victim's doppelganger? What? Certainly if the bird cage containing the body of the victim was exchanged for another, that cage must also have contained a body. And yet, no missing persons or accidental deaths of anyone even remotely resembling the victim have been reported. Which means there was no one, dead or alive, who could have fulfilled the role of a body double for Mr. Asman. Ah, that's true. My argument is that there were 2 bird cages, and there must have been 1 person inside each. But I don't know if I've got an answer to this yet, have I? Well, here's the thing. There doesn't need to be a body double as a person if the forensic team's in on it. It could be some mannequin.
So what's our option?
Name someone, present evidence, nothing at the moment. And remember that he had this.
Mm-hmm.
Very well, the defense will address my learned friend's concerns by presenting evidence that reveals the true nature of Mr. Aspen's body double. Good gracious, evidence? I do hope this isn't filibustering, counsel. The court is expecting a name. If you think you have relevant evidence, present it now. The body double and the birdcage were hiding inside the balloon that was floating above the stage, which means that any witnesses would have only seen them from 60 feet away. So who was it that appeared out of that explosion some 18 meters above the spectators? Yeah, it seems very... yeah. The body double inside the birdcage was...
Take that!
We know that the victim, Mr. Aspen, was in the birdcage that was situated inside the kinesis machine on stage, and therefore he couldn't have been inside the second birdcage. Instead, that contained something else. What's been described as a body double, which is what fell from the sky and crashed into the Crystal Tower. Yes, counsel, according to your somewhat elaborate version of events. And that body double inside the second birdcage was in fact... It's alright, Mr. Naruhodo. You're ready for this. Just steel yourself and come out with it. Thank you, Mr. Sato, I needed that. As I was saying, the body... whoops. That thing there. That thing there.
Objection!
Open your eyes and look into mine, my Nipponese friend. Now tell me, what are you playing at? Stand firm now, Ryunosuke. This is the time to show your Japanese spirit. As the court will observe, this is a waxwork model. A model, in fact, of an infamous London murderer from 10 years ago, the Professor. You started by indicting the leader of the forensic investigation team as an accomplice in this crime, and now you've moved on to indicting Waxworks? Yes, that's about the size of it. But why? And why this Waxwork? It looks nothing like the victim. In fact, it could hardly resemble him less. What possible justification can you give? If you want to know why, ask Mr. Drebber. What? Just days before Professor Harebrain performed his public demonstration, Mr. Drebber abducted this model from Madame Tuspel's. Did you say abducted? And 2 days after the incident at the Great Exhibition, he returned it to the museum. Then the timing. Is this true, Mr. Drebber? At first I couldn't see why Mr. Drebber would have stolen the waxwork and then given it back again. But now the reason is clear. He took it so that he could put it inside the second birdcage as a body double for Mr. Asman.
Objection!
Are you hearing this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Are you hearing the defense's astonishing proposal? That the witness fabricated this vast machine with the intention of deceiving some wretched scientist, then he did so in collusion with the country's finest coroner on a public stage in front of a vast audience. And that, to effect the deception, he used a waxwork model that in no way resembles the victim. Are we really to believe this far-fetched tale? What do you decide?
Objection!
Wait. Yes, if you put it like that, of course it sounds implausible. My lord, I need to speak, if you please. Go ahead, Mr. Foreman. Myself and my colleagues have reached an agreement. Oh boy. Very good. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will state your leanings for the court to hear now.
Guilty! Guilty! Guilty!
Guilty!
Guilty!
This is actually one point where I can't fault the jury, because if I listened to all that, I'd be like...
But what's more absurd? Transporting a human being through the air?
Yes.
Or a stage trick?
Mm-hmm.
The stage trick.
That is true.
I mean, like, if you think about when David Copperfield, quote-unquote, moved the Statue of Liberty,
Yeah.
like, I won't spoil that for the people who haven't seen it, but I know how he did it.
And I'm pretty sure I know how he did it, too.
Yeah. And, of course he didn't move her, you know?
Yeah, and I know what you're saying, but, like, if it's, like, the coroner's totally in on it, and, you know, these... I would probably be like, oh god, the defense is reaching. So I can actually see this. I knew this was going to happen. We shall get through this, Mr. Naruto, as we always do. And uncover some new truths along the way, I'm quite sure. Yes, I agree. I'm going to have to appeal to the jurors as usual and see if I can persuade them to change their minds. The defense will now embark on a summation examination. Are you and your fellows ready to proceed, Mr. Foreman? We are, my lord. Very well. In that case, I ask you now to state... Oh, that's mine?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, there it is. Okay. I had to make sure I viewed it, because if not, it'll ring again in 2 minutes. The grounds on which each of you has decided the defendant is guilty of the crime of which he is charged. Sometimes these can be quite entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what their reasoning is. I've known that woman for years, never being an accomplice to anything. It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another. Oh dear, this is most troubling. But surely the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the coroner, is it? I have had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much. I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the birdcage. It's conjecture. Accusing someone without right evidences? He's not a proper job, is he? I won't have it. Well, the guy who said, I don't trust police, why would he then say guilty, then? Because we're saying the coroner's in on it, why... Like, you have a distrust. Somewhat unsurprisingly, it would seem the introduction of this waxwork model to the proceedings has polarized opinion. Given that its face is obscured and its build in no way resembles that of the victim, I can only applaud my learned friend's temerity at suggesting it as Mr. Aspen's body double. Yes, the applause is deafening, and yes, I know it seems extraordinary, but that's the point. That's why I have a strong feeling it's actually a greater clue than anyone yet realizes. What are you thinking, Mr. Naruhodo? I can't explain why at the moment, but I feel as though there's a specific reason why it was used, why it had to be this model.
Yeah.
Really, a reason why nothing else would do, you mean? Yes, and I'm convinced it's something far more significant than whether or not the model looked like the victim. Well, if that's the case, we must prevent the trial from ending prematurely at all costs. Susanoo is such, man, is she a good rock to lean on.
She levels things.
She levels things, she's mature, way more mature than her age. I mean, she's like... She may be my favorite... I don't even want to say sidekick, just because, like... Boy, she holds her ground. But definitely as far as, your lady friend, in a way, she may be my favorite one, which is pretty cool. Alright, let's see. If you are ready, counsel, you may proceed with the summation examination. Yes, my lord. Now, I wonder... Can I just show the glass now, or should I...
Press them first, I guess.
Yeah.
Hold it!
But you claimed the whole instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a trick. That I did, but there's more than one way to pull a rabbit out of a hat, isn't there? Sorry? I grant you, given that this cage appeared from a mist and explosion, there'd have been no need to use a real person. But if a waxwork had been used, the culprit could at least have had the decency to make it look like the victim. I'm not sure exactly how much criminals are governed by decency. The point is, if you're going to make a claim about that waxwork being inside the birdcage, you need to give us some evidence. Without that, it's just not science. I suppose we should expect nothing less than a logical argument from a fellow of the Royal Society. That perhaps means his mind could be changed if we manage to present suitable evidence. Evidence that the Professor Waxwork... I have evidence? Yeah, good thing we pressed him. Actually, I have something I'd like you to see, sir. Oh? I must warn you that I firmly believe it's only wise to trust men in white coats. So given your jet black outfit, I don't mind admitting to a sense of trepidation here. So you don't trust anyone in black. Looking in the mirror must be very trying.
Take that!
What's that? A piece of glass? Though it's unusually thick for glass. Yes, there's a piece of broken glass that we found inside the jacket on the waxwork. As you say, it's not ordinary glass, though. It's very thick and clearly made for extra strength. Much like the special glass that was developed for the construction of the Crystal Tower. Holy smoke! Exactly, the centerpiece of the Great Exhibition where the very incident we're talking about took place. On the day in question, the birdcage fell from above and smashed through a window of that special glass. From whence this small piece originated, is that it? Precisely, so what do you say? Now that clear evidence in support of the assertion has been placed before you. Well, as I said, I only trust men in white coats as a rule. However, when the reasoning is sound, it's fair to say color shouldn't come into it. In light of what you've shown me here, yes, I feel obliged to change my position on the matter. In that case, jury number 4, you will amend your statement now, please. The presence of that piece of glass leaves me in little doubt that the waxwork was indeed inside that birdcage. Okay, so why are you still saying guilty? Thank you for reconsidering your position, sir. Your words were misplaced, boy. My opinion is governed by logic and science and nothing more. Yes, science is where you should direct your words of gratitude. Ah. What's the matter with you? Too good to say some words of thanks to the mother of all academic subjects? What is it about scientists, honestly? Whoops. I know it seems a little far-fetched to think the waxwork model of the professor was in that birdcage. But on the other hand, it explains a lot.
If there really is a reason why that particular waxwork had to be used with Mr. Aspen's double, we must do everything we can to make the jurors understand it. The truth is, I'm sure that's the key to this, but it's the most puzzling part of it, too. In that case, you should see what additional information you can glean whilst trying to change the jurors' minds. If you can read a book whilst eating a rice cracker, Mr. Naruhodo, I'm sure you can do this. Right, yes. The order of things seems to have changed around here for some reason.
Yes, that's why I went... I thought from 5 I'd go to 6, but 6 went first. I'm a copper, lad. It's a copper's discretion to bend the rules sometimes when needs must. What's wrong with that? Where do I start? I've been working at the yard for 40-odd years. That's even more than I thought. We've only had a metropolitan police service in town for 70 years, you know. Of course, times have changed. The public didn't trust coppers back when I started. It was rough. We had to fight crime. We had to fight to win the public's trust as well. And when we did, forensic science was in its infancy, too, even more than it is now, and she spearheaded the revolution. Dr. Scythe, you mean? That's right. About 10 years ago now it was, when I was still a youngish Bobby on the beat. That's when she started making a name for herself as a top-class coroner. And now look at her, head of the forensic investigation team, and a woman no less. Well, you won't hear me complain. Because we all jumped to it back then, I tell you. Could you tell me without holding that gun in the air? We were all out to uphold justice, lad. Full of vim we were, full of vim. That's coming across loud and clear. I don't know if he can be changed, the first one, but we're only just starting to understand this case. What are you reading there, sir? The man behind those murders at Solar Pond Streets was caught in 2 days flat. That's real policing for you. That's really not relevant to this case, is it? You're wrong there. Because it was Dr. Scythe in charge of examining the bodies, and it was evidence arising from her work that led to the arrest of the scoundrel responsible. Oh. That's right, oh. That woman is at the forefront of this country's fight against crime. The idea that she's somehow involved in this murky business is a load of old tosh. I thought it was up to me to press the jurors, not the other way around.
Hold it!
Why would you assume that? Well, quite simply because that unsettling swindler has no relationship with the woman, does he? True, as it stands, we don't know of any connection. Oh gosh, but it would be delightfully romantic if they were somehow to have a mutual interest in the waxwork.
Romantic? A woman of society such as myself
views everything in terms of relationships, you know. Well, you learn something new every day, even if you don't want to. One might wonder about a possible relationship between the defendant and this coroner woman. Or perhaps between the defendant and the handsome prosecutor just there. This woman may be more astute than I've been giving her credit for. If that's the woman's stance, then perhaps demonstrating some connection between the waxwork and Dr. Scythe would be enough. Yes, I agree. As soon as we have even a whiff of connection, she'll be the first to know.
Well, don't we kind of? The autopsy report?
Yeah.
But we don't know that her maiden name was Stevens.
That's true.
Not yet, anyway.
So let's...
Hold it!
What sort of problems? Let's just say we have run into each other on numerous occasions while I've been performing on the street.
Right, I see.
Obviously, artists such as myself cannot appear on stage as we work in close proximity to our audiences. So we perform our great magic in parks, on street corners, and the like. But the police use any excuse to make our lives difficult.
Excuse me!
Do you have something to say in response to that, Mr. Ottermole? Who are you calling a masked murderer? Sorry, my mistake. I got confused because I heard you look like him. I don't look anything like him. The one we locked up, Sonny? Thanks, Mr. Sholmes. Perhaps we can move on. I was really wondering if you had something you wanted to add in response to what juror number 3 just said.
And clearly you do.
Back in my day, back in the good old days. It wasn't like this. What was it like, sir? We worked our fingers to the bone to earn the public's trust, we did. And by Jove, we'd earned it. People respected us back then. Respected you? No one would have called a coroner into question in them days. A coroner's report was the hallmark of an investigation done right. Especially when Dr. Courtney Stevens put her name to it. She was the best of the best, and the apple of the... Hold on a minute. What are you talking about? Who's Courtney Stevens? Ah, sorry. Got a little bit carried away there. Stevens is Dr. Scythe's maiden name. Her maiden name? So that was before she was married. Of course, yes. Silly me. It's Scythe now, isn't it? Stevens. I'm sure I've seen that name somewhere recently. Anyway, the point is, those were the great days of policing, not like now. Sorry to interrupt, sir. But do you think you could change your statement to include that name? Well, yes, I don't see why not. Okay, so here's the thing, though. Are we supposed to pit these two?
Well, you can show her the connection between Steven.
Yeah.
You show the killers or something.
The thing is, just examine. There's people, and there's... Let's press her again and see if something comes from it. Maybe we'll say something else, like it'll say, oh, you can present stuff.
She did the autopsy on him in real life.
Yeah, but when I go in, see, it doesn't let me present anything.
Oh. That's weird, huh?
Yeah, because I presented the glass. Well, I presented the glass because we had pressed them, and then we were able to present evidence.
And you can't press it anymore.
Let me see. Let's press her. I've got to ask, why have you brought that cord into court with you? Colonel Cobb? He's been growing back on the farm. Picked him off on me way into town. He's a proper nibbler, he is. Yes, the nibbling seems to be taking quite a while. Maybe you could wait until after the trial? Oh, I don't like the sound of that. You need colonels at times like these. Whenever I summit big to the side, the colonels always point me in the right direction, see? You're talking about your cop of corn? Nibble, nobble, guilty, bobble. Nibble, not guilty, out. Nibble, nobble, guilty, gobble. Nibble, not guilty, out. Nibble, nobble, guilty, gobble. What the heck? Interesting. Perhaps it's akin to fortune-telling with flowered petals like people do back home. So Professor Herbane's fate is to be decided by a cob of corn. Could you not at least wait until we've had more time to find the truth before deciding on the defendant's guilt? Ooh, I don't know about that. My tum's awfully full already. Amazing. Let's see. Well, let's press him on this, since we haven't. She was legendary, was she? What did you say? That woman is still the best coroner in the land, head of the forensic investigation team. Legendary was your description, sir, not mine. Rubbish, that word never passed my lips. I never describe anybody that way, ever. Not if they were still in the game. I think the point you're trying to make is that Dr. Scythe is an extremely talented coroner. Would that be fair? It would. If it weren't for the fact that you're trying to drive the legendary woman's reputation through the mud, I'm going to pretend that I didn't hear that legendary. Let's see. Oh, well, let's pit them.
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other. Good gracious, to whose statements do you refer, counsel? So, juror number 2. Oh gosh, me? What can I do? I presume that you heard what juror number 6 said in his statement. It's brought to light the maiden name of the coroner, Dr. Scythe, which in turn has revealed a connection that wasn't apparent before. Well, naturally, as a woman of society, I found such connections and relationships irresistible. But oh golly, I'm afraid I fail to see what you mean. Dr. Scythe's maiden name is Stevens, and through that name the coroner is very definitely linked to the waxwork of the killer. The defense has evidence to prove it. My goodness, evidence, you say? How utterly enthralling. Counsel, the court cannot overlook that last remark. I very much hope there is substance to your claim. Of course, my lord, I would ask the court to look at this. The evidence that clearly links Dr. Scythe and a mass murderer known as the Professor.
Take that!
I have here a certain autopsy report from 10 years ago. A 10-year-old autopsy report? What relevance does that have? It is, of course, from the autopsy of the person portrayed in the waxwork, the killer known as the Professor. The Professor's? But the man was a capital offender, so... That's right, this is the certification of death that was drawn up after the convict's execution. The identity of the killer was never made public, so the report gives few details. But what's important is the name of the coroner who wrote it. Courtney Stevens. Oh my, Courtney Stevens. Strike a light. It appears that the professor's autopsy was conducted by Dr. Scythe 10 years ago, and a few days ago Mr. Drebber very deliberately stole the waxwork of the professor from Madame Tuspel's, a waxwork that doesn't in fact resemble the victim, Mr. Asman, at all. And do you suppose there's some unsavory relationship between those events? Absolutely, I'm sure of it. There's no doubt in my mind that the Professor case is at the heart of a link that we have yet to uncover between Dr. Courtney Scythe and Mr. Enoch Drebber. Because we did see Drebber in the Waxwork Museum, in that thing. Hidden links, mysterious connections, secret relationships, this is all most extraordinary. We're surely obliged now to explore this further. Quite right. We can't let this trial come to an end now. Not while there's still a cloud of suspicion hanging over the yard's best coroner. Oh, there we go. It wasn't like this in my day, but we're still here to uphold justice in the end. Okay.
It's utter nonsense to think that these two would ever be conniving with one another. Well, we know that's not true now.
And that's the thing, I wonder if we have supposed to pit him maybe to him, because if that piece of glass means the waxwork was in the birdcage, then that means that he had a helper, unless it's supposed to be him because he has problems with the police, and so it's not nonsense. I'm trying to think what the best way to do it would be. Let's try it.
Objection!
Nope. Ah, there's to be a new Herlock Sholmes adventure published next month by the looks. My lord, the foreman of the jury isn't listening. Is that so? Well, I shall have to reserve myself a copy of the local newsagent in that case. Mr. Sato, no one is listening to what I'm saying. Perhaps this would be a good opportunity to have a rethink then, Mr. Naruhodo. Fear not, my learned friend. I heard every sorry word. It sounds like I'm on the wrong track here. I better think again.
We do have evidence.
Well, let's do him since we've gotten the other guy now. So, obviously, artist such as myself cannot appear on stage. But the police use any excuse to make our lives difficult. Sometimes they even cook up a story to extort monies from the poor. Well, that's definitely not right. Yes, and it is why I say that if you trust the police, you will have trouble. But here you are claiming this waxwork model was stolen to star in an illusionary spectacular. The idea is so wild that I will take my chances and believe the authorities on this occasion. This is how the public at large views Scotland Yard, is it? Our own police force in Tokyo is not even 20 years old yet, is it? Perhaps we should view what's happened here in London as a measure of what may happen at home. Yes, like a Scotland yardstick. I wonder how a policeman would feel listening to the way this juror speaks about the force. I'm sure he'd have a word or two to say in response, which we just did.
I'm getting tired.
You are?
I need to brush my teeth.
And then you want to just put it on hold?
You want to put it on hold, or you want to brush your teeth and then come back and try it?
I mean, I'm okay for now, so if you want to brush your teeth to get a second wind.
Okay.
Although I guess there's no point in not brushing my teeth then.
I mean, it's actually 8:50.
Yeah, so I'll brush my teeth too. We'll come back to this with a second wind and see what we can figure out. Maybe that'll help us figure out who to pit and... Oh, that's... Whoops. Alright, now wait for her, and then we'll see what we can get done.